Alright, shasa dunga pangwa batan digi debache jisanga joge da dunga le dro ko re jire da dunga le dre di ganes chino ko dro re labna demba shigi nilu thongje dunga dembe gi ni so yapo ha ko wache dine dunga le thardu ke samaje dunga kasa dunga gi ni so yapo ha ko wache dine dunga di ha ko ende dunga di kyu kar le chwa re sene ne kunjo de ba ha ko wache jisanda dunga yu kyu kunjo de ba ha ko yo de ana nga so ya ane dine ke dunga le thardu ke samati le gres jisanda dunga le thardu ke sambada dunga yu kyu kunjo pangdu ke sambati le dile de dene ana nga so ke ko tien se de dunga yi kyu kunjo de ba nyomo ba pangba an tarba sa de tugi yo ba de ha ko je dine nga de tarba togudo se be tarba de ni sambali le gres dine ke tarba de ni sambali le sabaina an dine gar che goresne 안 타바 토예기 돈달라 람냠는 제고레스 두스진의 냠는 제바 있나 하는 가지고 그 타바 토고레 타바 톱나 아니 거기 동아 타달을 저 사와레 진짜데 띵기디 ho 토바레 안둥아 타라데 저고레스 디니자 안 템바시 니루팅아도 약고 신고야데 계신보레스 아니 계신보레스 디니자 당아 저기 잠반야샤시 고묘도 아니 가르쳐 고묘도 잠반야샤시 고묘도 템바시 냠를 주고레스 이제 류 잠반야샤 고미게 동아 템베게 냠를 주야당 아니 소와점만야샤 고미게 아니 군주템베 니수신제 군주템베 냠는 템바시나는 군주템베 냠를 주야 아니 셈잠반야샤 고묘도 는 고텐스 디니 하고야 제 탈바셔야 돼 탑유 고텐스 하고 그래서 고베템 발라이 냠는 주고레스 디니자 아니 도스진레스는 그 생각도 디고리아 차상 야슈 사바레
Good morning. So we sit here now all together, virtually, all with the same deep inner wish to experience lasting, stable peace of mind. Peace of mind that's uninterrupted by even the slightest disturbance, completely freed from suffering. So how to achieve this state? How to achieve a state freed of suffering, a state of lasting peace? This can be attained through coming to understand the Four Noble Truths well. Because through knowing the Four Noble Truths well, we'll come to know what suffering is. We'll come to know what the causes of suffering are. And knowing that what suffering is in terms of both its causa as well as its subtler elements, as well as its causes, the wish for liberation from those causes and their results will arise within us. The wish to attain cessation of suffering will arise within us. The state of liberation, which is attained through the complete abandonment of the afflictions together with their seeds. And thereafter, having given rise to this wish for freedom from suffering, for cessation of suffering, we'll seek out the technique to achieve it. And that is through cultivating the appropriate mental paths, or in other words, through training our mind. And this is then, in brief, the presentation of the Four Noble Truths. So these we need to come to know well, and a skillful technique to come to realize the Four Noble Truths, or to engage in the practice of the Four Noble Truths, is through practicing the Four Close Placements of Mindfulness. So it's through practicing the Four Close Placements of Mindfulness that suffering will be known, that its origin we'll recognize is what needs to be abandoned, and that it's cessations that need to be attained. So these are the first three of the Four Noble Truths, and it's thus far that we have come in the presentation here on the purpose of this meditation.
chen tenpanye sha ko shue che tenpanye sha ko myo de an kar cha wor sne an lamde la te ba shi na ne da nga de lamde nyam su len ba le ya ju gu nya ju go re sa di go re ma shue re.
Today we're going to come to the what we see here on page 5, that through meditating on the close placement of mindfulness on phenomena, one will engage in the practice of true paths.
나딩은 저디 가르람나 저기 전반야샤 시시의 류 전반야샤 나셈 전반야 소와 전반야샤 셈 전반야샤 최 전반야샤스네 시시고르와 지난다 전반야샤 라면도 가르스고르스네 저 아니 유대술의 미시 전비파지 셰럽기 제바체 네가서 야 ben 유대술의 ben 류의 미네 류용어 간데시샤스비게 전비기 유리의 미 전비기 지 and 유대의 셰럽기 용어 간데시샤스 제바체 랑기 친용어 간데시샤 and 지 친이로시 간데시샤스비게 되네기 셰럽기 제바체 검고로와 되네기 디나진 초와다 샘다 최디네리 미네 전비기 유디지 될야 아니 셰럽기 안니가서 랑게다 생의 지친이 제바체 검베게 되네게다 셰바텔라 아니 템바다 셰럽 이 가로기 뒤피가 람텔라 가지고 잠반예샤 사데 되니시라고 그러와다
Thus far in our text, we've looked at the four observed objects for the close placements of mindfulness, that of the body, feelings, mind, and phenomena. And we've already seen through their subdivisions how this encompasses all phenomena. And therefore, the practice of the four close placements of mindfulness, we saw in the preceding outline, was with mindfulness, which includes stabilization, one apprehends the object, for example, the body, and then with wisdom, one investigates. And one first investigates the specific characteristic of the observed object, namely its entity. Thereafter, one engages with wisdom in the investigation through the investigation of the observed object through the general characteristics. So in this way, one uses mindfulness, which includes stabilization, as well as wisdom.
되네 이제 당한 저기 가라하고 말씀 아 저기 리기 내타디 하고 말 저기 리기 내타디 리용어 간의 심바디 하고 말에 아니 되네 초와세다 초위기 내타 디게 아주 하고 말에 아니 아 저기 다 셈다 최다 디수디다 딜레 갈레카로 지제 디네서 하고 말 디네서 하고 얘기 돈달라 담봉 아주 리유고 니수 랑기 챙이세 리 내타 간의 심바디랑 뭐로 하고 와지 단 디에 루기 케슈에 가르가르 루드네 케슈에 간의 형도 메다와세 둥아와세다 케슈 디네딘 두와스 제바제야다 안 소와세데 뭐 간듯이 안 소위기 다 리미다와 가르가르 두 디네 잔 소위기 디네시난 그런 게 디데 내다다 간에 자기도 지칭이 삼다 누신 제바제도 아 저기 디모 디기 내다데 하고 용으로 하고 요도 내수다 하고 요도 맞아 약보 있나 디 아니 가지 해게 되어요 바다 아니 지게 교요 바다 내교용아 지어봐이네 아주 매봐서 거야디 아니 세부하고 두고로 디네자 디 곰고에게 조로시 디차고로 하다
Purpose of engaging in this meditation is to overcome our confusion, our lack of knowledge, our lack of understanding about the actual situation about how objects exist. So therefore, through these four divisions, we come to investigate all phenomena. So, starting with the phenomena that are easier to understand, as well as with characteristics which are easier to apprehend. One starts with the body, thereafter feelings. First, coming to investigate the entity, the specific characteristic of the phenomenon. In this way, coming to understand what it is. Thereafter, to understand that in a deeper way, one engages through the general characteristics, starting with impermanence, thereafter suffering and so forth. And this is all so that we can come to understand the actual situation of the objects well. Because when we understand phenomena well, existence well, those that we see as beneficial, we'll want to adopt. Those that we recognize as being harmful, we'll readily want to abandon. So as to be able to engage with sincerity and deep effort, we need to come to understand what are the entity, what we need to come to understand the actual situation, the reality of objects. Thereby we know what we truly want to adopt and what we need to abandon.
dunga se de ge nga zo ha ko ba yin da dunga de ge kan de syung gu yu kan de syung gu se che ba che de da dunga yu zo de da ka yo re se ne nga zo ge ha ko che ba che ha ko de nga zo sim gi de yo ba da ha ko de go ba che san sim gi de yo ba da sim na lo le she da sim se de da nga zo ji da she ba shi go ji din kai yong da she sim ji da nga zo ge shung ne she sim na sim ju kya ba yo shi go de na da nga zo ge ji da ne sim la yo de she ba go go ba de na nga zo lo la lue de de sheba di tian de yo ba de che sang nga zo sheba di na la da ma ra rik da ma ra ye di ba che ya bu di ya ga rik da du a ma che du a kya ye du che sang di nga zo ge da kun jung de ba de ne yo ba ha go de che sang nga zo la gang yong sa gi chu chu cha sang di gi tian de yong tu gu nga zo she nang sim gi tian de sim gi to ne yong go de je wa che sang yin za gang yong sa gi yu zo de nga zo sim gi tian de yo de che sang nga zo sim de zang ma su gu de se gu da zang ma su gu de la yo wa che sang da zang ma su gu ba yin zang ane semdi yaga kardu, duga kardu, sedi zangmo suyo kwaya de karesha, da yakbo dakbo yagwa de karesha, cheba chee du kunju denpa leda kaso nyommo ba se rik chasang, da ko panma doga nyobe jiga kanga jiga rik chiri, chesa di chasang zangmo suyo kukudu sayada. Da nga zo dakbo yagwa de, dakbo yagwa de karela ne, da kaso lamyi cho, kiwi chao, lamyi cho, lamdengi cho, lamden sayada, dili sheba dige, nga zuki nya takbo jagwa da di nga zuglia bechu ji yakbo nyuba chera tangwa da nga zo jala ma son xingdo ma son chulo ji ya che che na jo on di na ji ya ge tangwa de nga zuki di sem de sha se de ne ge tone an de ne ge sem de ha ko yo de zangma sem de chasa zangma sue sa ba ina an gar cha ge le lam na sem gi gyun na gyun yi ri chasa me ba zo zangma cha sa ba da sem de zangma zang ja che ji ge wa ja ya cha de an di tarba 디 토용으로 제가 탈바세 토용으로 디 탈바 토는다 셈기 리글리 셈 델야 균이 릭다데 매바 마세 마음바나 자오기니 게 매바기 매바서 양제 마게 뉴바 쳐서 봐좀 차와인자 아니 가르소르스네 데네 기디네 대완데 대와마도 둥알 저와레 둥아게 요 말레스 제가 탈바 토바레 사지 디시고로 와다
Through the various meditations that we've already covered over these preceding few months, then will have come to a good understanding of both what suffering is and the subtler forms of suffering that we experience, as well as how suffering arises, both the actual experience of suffering as well as its deeper causes. And through this process, we'll come to have gained, through the process of understanding suffering and its cause as well, we'll recognize that it's primarily, it's in our mental consciousness, our consciousnesses, where we experience suffering. And it's through our way of thinking that we create suffering. So here, speaking about mind or consciousness or awareness in a very general way, we will have come to understand that we have a wide variety of consciousnesses and we can divide mind or consciousness or awareness in many different ways. But in brief, we can talk about those which are virtuous and those which are non-virtuous. And it's through recognizing these that, as well as that it is in our consciousness, in our mental states where we experience suffering, and it's through our way of thinking that we create suffering, we recognize that these non-virtuous consciousnesses are what we need to purify, and we need to cultivate our virtuous consciousnesses. So it's through recognizing this, through coming to understand firstly suffering well as thereby coming to understand our consciousness well, we will strive to purify our consciousness of all non-virtuous minds, recognizing that it's these that harm us. And moreover, we'll understand that the way to do this is to cultivate ever stronger, virtuous ways of thinking. And this is then how we engage in the practice of cultivating true paths. This is the process whereby we completely eradicate suffering and attain the lasting, stable happiness of liberation.
Bene 당하는 저기 지금으로 bene 스틸기 bene 가서 저기 달래로 지가서 우리 때 뇌로 뇌배나 장마장야시 직 당보이도 니가 장마장야요라 다 민니기 직녀바체 니가 직 당보 뇌도 직부지가 뇌배나 다 미직 디게 직코 베제마나지 니 직게 샤샤반나 장마장야라요라 다 미직 디게 베제 가서 우리 칼라사 마투 디하마사 마투 데네 니망보도 안 될야 조과차세 배 잡아봐 자르체네 아니 지게 차고 쇼차네 배 조고 쇼지여로 와데 나 데네 jö베kabla 니디 직대 장마장자 직대 조고 쇼리 이내 코로니게 랑신 될야 장마야 장마여되로 와다 제사디 조고 여행디 쥐네 다치 되지 대자 지부 나지 장마장야 차여되 바시래 이내 다데 고 조고 지 자르되 바자 자르체네 차고 차 되네 조고 되기 바자 되네 되네야 디마여되겐 되네 jö베나 나서 셈로지 디로시래 사이게 셈디 대지디 장마장자노로시래 제사다 되네 조고 여행디 엔다 가르쳐고르시네 다디 장마장자 차야라 장마 수요고로 와다 간에 수요고르시네 다델야 안디 다세로스 마소나 어디지 베시 다나 장마 차그래 당보디체 안디 드는 직 차고 차고마나 되네 아직 디 베시 단디 장마 차그래 세지 차네 고 림베시는 주지 고 당보디 지주되서 이슬이 겹쳐 되는 마다 봐네 바다려다 안디 제네 안에 가서 오래가서 디 록슈로 루진 배 디네 제지도 안에 가삼질라 장마 차루로 와 되네 녀만유교디다 지부šan다디다 니가 지부지장 장마 차기로 와 디난시 아 산지기 셈데당 아 저기 셈니라 장신라 캬바지요마 장신라 지마 묘모베기 마슈바짱야 장신라 이내 당아 저 셈기라 랑신 장마장자 이내 딜야직 되차 콘로 나게 마리과 록시 식자 마라케시네 아저 셈디 디차상기 작바기 쪽바디 tum바나 양아도 뇽몽베게 리기 마보식 tum제 아니 나로게 셈야고티 아니 베시구요 나마토 와서 쇠제 샤서 tum제 디네 차디고로와 베시 뉴버 메팅해지 그래서 당한 저기다 냠는 지수도 안주 주야리야 당보 쪼바 가리도 하고 그러와 쪼바다 하 먹는 주고 말아 돼 벨라자라나 지금 쪼바다 하고도 쪼바 디도 쪼바 딜이야 아니 다설 무슨 디베지단 다투고리 세데 다설 하고 해지 안 디기 다마도 베나 쪼바 데네지 여베나 델야는 베지 디땅 디기 다투고리세네 베지 땅제 쪼바 다해기 아니 지 다세다 직망고 디차사 하고 요도 디베지데 쪼바 다투고로 안디나신 아 저기 셈이 셈나라 뇽몽베 릭티 차사 지가가르 여바 하고 와제 하고 요도 다 델야 다슬 마소나 어디콤 님보 디데는 냠는 디콤바이나 아니 가 셈나 디콤바이나 디파투 메바스투 디콤바나 디메바스투 그래스베 두치는 가 저기 냠는 제여도 아니 가도 제는 지 림베 제는 가 저기 셈디 뇽몽베 릭티 차사마 메바스네 디니 남식이 채나 아니 기장마장자 쇠시는 날라야 양자 균이 뇽몽베 릭티 사보나 제바 예메바스요도 아니 tarpaasaya toya di dine chagurwa da chisa dine insa nga zuki sem di da sanji ki sem nila tsayu la rangshin la chikbu chikyan la kyaba jaya meba re chisa nga zuki sem di sanji ngo gyurung re chisa nga zuki zangma suyne sanji cha tubu warwa chisa nga zuki la sanji rigyo re sanji gyur tubu re siri chisa nga zuki semgi rangshin sanji sem la chikba re chisa nga zuki nyomong wiki 쪽바디 가디바 디장마 쇠바이나 아니 산지용와 주투그레 시거 디송고로 와다
Many of you have probably traveled to India and you've seen when you order food, you may, especially if you order a thali, it may well come on a quite a large circular metal plate. And so if you call to mind a large circular metal plate, maybe two of them, and think that they are both used for food. And the one person they don't wash their plate very often. They just leave the food on there, and the next meal they add some more and eat away. The other person, though, they are quite hygienic, and they keep their plate very clean, spotlessly clean. So they also eat off it, but then after eating, they clean it well. So very quickly, those two plates, which were brought together, look completely different. The one is filthy. You look at it and all you see is old food. The other, it looks as new. You look at it and it's really like looking in a mirror. It's unscratched and it's unstained. So these two plates were brought together. They were identical, but now when you look at them, completely different. However, the person who has cared for their plate properly, cleaning it after every meal, they know that the person who owns the other plate, should they just try a little bit to clean their plate and keep it that way, that plate will very quickly look exactly, those two plates will very quickly look exactly the same, because their entity is identical. Therefore, that filthy plate can be cleaned and restored to the same state that the other one is being kept in. But for that rather unhygienic person to do so, they first need to develop some knowledge. They need to recognize that their plate is filthy. They need to recognize why it is so. Thirdly, that it doesn't have to be like that. And fourthly, what they can do about it. Then, with that knowledge, in no time, they will be able to clean their plate and with diligence, keep it sparkling like a clean mirror, and the two plates will be identical. And this is possible because the entity is identical. Now, we take that analogy and we apply it to our mind. So our mind, in its nature, is identical to that of a Buddha's. This is because we have Buddha potential, Buddha nature. However, observing the mind, they appear so different. And this is because our mind is obscured by the afflictions. Buddha's mind is completely purified of the afflictions. Therefore, they appear so different and they function so differently. So we need to, just like the person with the filthy plate, we need to first recognize our current situation. We need to recognize the causes that have led to our current situation. We need to recognize that this is not how it has to be. The way our mind currently is not how it has to be. We can become freed of our current state. And then fourthly, how to do so. What we need to stop doing and what we need to apply ourselves to do. We need to come to understand what it is that we need to abandon and what it is that we need to cultivate. And in this way, our mind that is currently so obscured by the afflictions can be purified from these defilements. And our mind, because it has the Buddha nature, we have the potential to become Buddhas ourselves. We can purify and develop our mind so that it becomes just like that of a Buddha, because their nature are identical.
Dine zangxing an zugi chuen zhenmen nyeja dos chine gomyo du kala jeba chi du dine nga zugi nyomomba kunni kasore dunga ya zo yudi nyomomba le nyomomba le diudu nyomomba tian zo de dase marikba de shas chizanda dase marikba se di yu de la yu ganes nangdu se ne nga se di kala ya ma du rang ngoi du ba nangdu se ja ji na na shin du menu jeba che ni den na na shin ji me ba chi do yong de ne da me ba do ba de de do yong de ne je za Da sa de ran le na na xin yue ba zin ba da se re de lo de na mi lo de mi yin ba lo xie yin ba da go ji zhe lo no zhe yin ba da go re ji zan di bang bei bang tu yue ba de bang ba yue ba da go di ha go de go de se de ha go re se de do ba re se de ke sing di go de ne xie wang zhen.
Previously, when we were looking at how to engage in the meditation on the close placement of mindfulness on phenomena, we recognized that all our problems come from our afflicted minds. And our afflicted minds, all of them, have as their root cause the ignorance of self-grasping. Then we spoke also about how to investigate, how to look at what is going wrong here. And we see that the problem is the way we relate to our sense of self-identity, our self. So we start by first coming to see how the self appears to us. And then we investigate to see if it exists in the way that it appears or not. And through the many ways of doing this investigation, we will repeatedly come to see that the self does not exist in the way that it appears. And therefore we'll recognize that the consciousness that grasps or apprehends the self as existing in this way is clearly a wrong consciousness, because the self does not exist in this way. And therefore, not only is it a wrong consciousness, but it is an ignorance. Recognizing that this is an ignorance that grasps at the self as existing in the way that it does not. This ignorance, we recognize, can be eliminated through continuously cultivating the understanding we've already now cultivated in meditation, recognizing that the self does not exist in the way that it appears. And therefore, through cultivating this wisdom that recognizes that the self is empty of existing in the way that it appears, we understand that this ignorance can be eliminated, the root cause of all our afflictions can be eliminated, and therefore we can achieve a cessation of all our suffering. True cessation is possible. So this we've already looked at previously. Recognizing then that through the abandonment of the afflictions together with their seeds, cessation will be achieved. We then naturally think, so how to do so? And this, through the practice of the close placement of mindfulness on phenomena, as we've seen before, presents the paths to cultivate in order to abandon all that keeps us bound in cyclic existence, and thereby attain freedom. Now turning to the text on page 5 at the 4th point. Through meditating on the close placement of mindfulness on phenomena, you will understand that all thoroughly afflicted phenomena are of the discordant class, and all completely pure phenomena are antidotes to them. Knowing that these very antidotes are the methods for turning away from harm, you will cultivate them and thereby engage in the practice of the Four Noble Truths.
아니 미바디 최세 오르 최세 디레 남윤지단의 최라여도 수스나 시가 예세 탐지디나 최나 뒤르고로 와 있네 최나 뒤르고 이나다 맞아 디케신 담마에 믹스 시야도 수기 담마에 수를 미비게딩 올 로소스 코란 살도 사 로소시 소와세디데 야 로소시 셈세 로소시 바인자 난 젠다시에 디칼하도 여신 디숨 마행게 최디게 하도요. 지산 디숨 마행게 최라 미제다 담마니자 검나시도 최담마니자 검바세로.
What this means that's been stated here is that through meditating on the close placements of mindfulness on phenomena, you will engage in the practice of true paths. So the text literally says, engage in the practice of the Four Noble Truths, but the meaning is, engage in the practice of true paths. So what then is meant by phenomena? Well, we in general, when we hear the term phenomena, it means everything that exists. So it includes all existence. But here, in our practice, in the practice of the four close placements of mindfulness, it means all phenomena that haven't been included already in the observed objects of the body, of feelings, and the mind. So all other existence are included here under phenomena. So it's slightly more restricted than in general. In general, when you hear about phenomena, it refers to everything that exists. But here in the practice of the four close placements of mindfulness, it means everything that exists that hasn't already been meditated on in terms of body, feelings, and mind.
Seminalia and Jikasheba Shebala Dusheda and Sembata Ila Jeba the Rabasa de Orova, just the Toa Dushes, Toa Shesarava, ne Josim number Sheba Shesarava, that Semnala Carrier, Sheba Nala Carriers, Dusheda, Dujeda, and Ila Jeba, the Rabasa, the Deniki Unguru, that Denikum da, so the church and Banija, Mibadi. That's down Chedela and Tapan to imagine Namgala, Sobata, Tapata, the Yungor Dana, that's all the Yamlin Jibi, couple of talks, mixed UD, mixed the Paje, Nangi, Sem, Dusheta, and Garsore, Sembata, Ilajaba, the Japata, Denichila, and then me, Miki Yuri, and Dimasha, to Pumbola, and Sugi Pumbanane, the Sugi Cherish, Sugi Chadela, the Sugi, Demetici or Demetici. Demeticeta, and do sola, and the nigger suyung or Demeticeta, Tesolia, and Jikjeba, Mibasonia, the Denichil Mibason, and the name Mibasonia, and Delia, and the Jabachigorwa.
Therefore, in the practice of the close placement of mindfulness on phenomena, the observed object of phenomena includes everything that exists that hasn't been included already. So with body, we had all types of form, and then we had different kinds of feelings, so that's a consciousness. Thereafter, we had mind, so these were the various main minds or primary consciousnesses. So now we come to phenomena, and a primary component then within phenomena are all other consciousnesses. So all consciousnesses that haven't been included thus far. So we've only looked at feelings as well as the various types of primary consciousnesses or main minds. So here this will include all other mental factors such as a discrimination, intention, mental engagement and contact, as well as non-associated compounded phenomena and permanent phenomena.
Nyam che la mi che se de rangi gyugi dubi che da rangi gyugi ma dubi che na so mangbu yebe na le dang zo nyam len kapla tangbo so so gyugi dubi che de la mi che de le ya che ba na ko so gyuwa ta ya la pe pando che yung ko wa ma zo gyugi de la sam gyune ma ta che ani shan da che che la sam ji mi ne sam ta we na de ni di xin ya le ka le kha ta ani nyam le lo le ya gyuwa ta ya le ka le kha cha de ko wa de ne za tangbo nyam le ji ju kapla nga so so rangi gyugi dubi ge da che de la mi che 미시 하는 거 저기 냠는 저와야 되는 차고 있어라.
The term phenomena, as we've heard now, refers to everything that exists. This we can divide in so many different ways. One is to say, divide phenomena into two. Everything that exists within your own continuum and everything that exists apart from what's on your own continuum, so outside of your own continuum. And within this twofold division, this is generally how we would approach meditation through relying on this way of defining phenomena, because the goal of the Dharma, the purpose of meditation is to transform one's own continuum, one's own mind. So therefore, one primarily focuses on objects connected to one's own continuum. So phenomena are connected to one's own continuum, because it's very difficult to change one's way of thinking, to change one's mind through focusing on phenomena outside or apart from one's own continuum. So this is also the approach we'll take here.
Denige rangi gyula mipi gyugi tipe chöchile miye cheba cheyode dene kunye nyomo gi chö la mitunba dang sede da kunye nyomo chö la yode da kunye nyomo be chö ngarazu gyula kariyongul sene du cheba chidi de cha konro ngaja ane chige shala nebe samba serna dene rikmangbo chenga cheba chida hago tugo hago gorwa chesna denige chesna da Denigi kunni nyomoba, this chasam kunni nyomobachi, nyomoba chesi, da kunni nyomobachi, the chata, conroda, nagyada, denigi, and chig, teasum da, loshero da, and denigi, that cernada, nube sambada, mara yungurua, then chasam kunni nyomobachi is, that this chasam do chichebachi do, that dine caressinem, kunni nyomobachi, la de chö 탐제라 미튠바다 세들라비도 미튠바라에도 빼내나 컨트롤 수치 개베나 구군이 뇽모베 chö래 제대다 지난군이 뇽모베 chö래 뇽모발라나 간디슬라워스네 나즈 셈 류셈랴 기우메바 쇠게 되겠네 류셈 안에 마기와 쇠 되겐기 샤바치라 안에 뇽모바시고로와 제자 뇽모바 제수기 뇽모바디 이릭디게 나즈 제바치다 하고 두고로와
And let's look at some of the terminology that's utilized here. Through meditating on the close placement of mindfulness and phenomena, you'll understand that all thoroughly afflicted phenomena are of the discordant classes. So here we see that thoroughly afflicted phenomena are of the discordant class. So thoroughly afflicted phenomena we search for, firstly, within our own continuum, for the reasons just mentioned. So we investigate what are the thoroughly afflicted phenomena on our continuum. And we'll find that these are the afflictions, such as attachment, anger, pride, harmful intent, jealousy, doubt, wrong consciousnesses, miserliness. There are so many. And this is what is meant by thoroughly afflicted phenomena here. And they are of the discordant class, in that these thoroughly afflicted phenomena lead to unhappiness being experienced in our body or mind.
십소대 중오로 간이실 러규베세 심주를 제바나 저기 뭐 소야래 가래 가고 차대요. 디네자 당아 저기 제산도 제바체데 되샤세디다 가르치도 시디 제산 되샤세 유딜의 미체 아니 미바나 신지 두에 코롱의 되샤게 유딜의 삼바나 따와나 신지 유용원이 줄에 니거르베 람나 미튠바 세드 지상 되샤 코롱게 유디 짐바 나신 된달라 유디요 말레스 제제 미튠바레스 코롱 짐바 나지 되라 메바 콘로디게 유디 나 저기 차탐제네 아니 가소레 멜레바 대비 콘도기 유디 짐바나시 된다디 콘도 짐바나시 유디 요마레 제자 다 뇽모바 간데시네 뇽모바 간데시기네 초로 코롱기 유디레 미바나시 코로나 나와나시 유디 다가라 여러분은 요마레스 제자 미튠바레스 미튠바다하세야지 최탐제를 민연몽베기 군녀모의 최탐제 미튠바다하세야디 군녀모베 최간데지네야 코로나주기 유디 코로나 나와나 나지 짐바나신지 된다 여러분서 요마레 제가 매반자 고 안에 응원인데서도 미팅바 진행하지래 제가 고 다다 차고 말해 제가 고 저 디기 응원인데서도 하 먹어와지 지금 하 먹어와지라 응원인데서 많이 봐지래 진도 봐야자 아니 지로 노트리스 진짜 델라 때는 가서를 제부 가려 온 것은 두어지 마다 야야 말해서 그러대 제가 디시고로 와
Let's look a little bit further at what it's meant by thoroughly afflicted phenomena of the discordant class. So you would have heard so many times already that the afflictions need to be abandoned. Attachment, anger, pride, jealousy, and so forth, these need to be abandoned. But yet we find it difficult to do so. And this is because we need still to think further and deeper about the afflictions, what they are, and the role they play. And it's only when we become thoroughly convinced that the afflictions only cause harm that they will be abandoned. They'll be recognized as our true enemies, and we won't allow them to arise, or if they do, to abide. So just to take a couple as an illustration of why afflictions are thoroughly afflicted. Take attachment, for example. Attachment, it's a consciousness, therefore it always has an object. So the object appears and is apprehended by the affliction of attachment. Attachment, its function, serves to exaggerate the features of the object, hence there's attachment. So we attach to the object because we have exaggerated the features of the object, the good features of the object. Therefore we are attached to it, we desire it. So then when we ask the question, does this object exist in the way that it's apprehended or not? It clearly doesn't, because attachment has arisen because we have exaggerated the good qualities, the good features of the object. So therefore, attachment is discordant from reality. It's not in harmony with reality. It's discordant from reality. Anger works in the same way in that it's through exaggerating the faulty characteristics of the object that we have anger or aversion towards an object. And therefore, if we investigate, does the object exist in the way that anger is apprehending it? We will see that it's not. Anger too is discordant from reality. And so these are two illustrations, but this is the case with all the afflicted minds. The way the afflictions apprehend their object is not in accordance with reality. The objects do not exist in the way that the afflictions apprehend them, and therefore are discordant with reality. And from the afflictions apprehending their objects in this discordant manner, in this manner that's not in accordance with reality, only harmful results follow. Only harmful results follow. Hence the term thoroughly afflicted. The afflictions are not beneficial. There is no wavering about that. They are thoroughly harmful because they are discordant from reality.
Nene zada nyomoba se kuni nyomobe che nyomoba dige chaza ane tamche che tamche mitun bada se de nangsu de range na na shin ji de la yo ma de ko jin ba na shin da jin ba na shin de la mi tin ba je sang ngui ni su de ma tin ba jin ba na ya de ngui ni su mi tin ba na jin ba de ngui ni su mi tin ba jin go re shi mi tin ba da an di ma se an ga ri yo se ne nga zu le de de nga zu ga du go sin de wa tu go re ga du go ma du ma du go ma re je sang mi de ba re de nyo mo ba de la tin nga zu de wa du go de nyo mo ba de la ga ri yo se ne nga zu de ba di da mi tin ba du nga ri le ko du nga le ko res je sang nga zu du go ma re du nga de du go ma ka sa ni ka nga de se du go du nga du go ma de ine nyomombaji nyomombaji nganzo ke deba karayasne dunga miti dunga de seyadirwa dunga meba soyadirwa meba chayage meba chaya digorde ine nyomombaji gi ane nganzo deba de mitimba dunga de ke yongores dunga yongores sesa nyomomba dela tene nganzo ke deba de mitimba da dewa digorde de mitimba ane dewa moduba dunga digo marde dunga mitimba de mitimba dunga leongore sesa dunga rugo sesa nyomobegi denigi rig nyomobegi chasangi gawa tigores nganzo kowal ma tigores nganzo la kanga nal ma tigores yorda kanga yo tigene disu tigodes tigodus chirogudu sesa desula tene kanga liudu sede ondus chene cheba chende nganzo ge chetan banye jakomyedo nyomobegi ngui ni su koronge nane kasor 진수디야 아니 뭐이니스 미팅바 진바 아니 아주게 되바디야 미팅바 임바 디기 메 데보디 용어도 가서 되바데 미팅비 데보디 리고레스 데네 하고도 고라 데네 하고여도 아니 가라 하고 그래서 다디 고해미도 삼고리고 라지사디 맞아 매바 쇠고고도 스티 고해미도 가르세네 고롱 뭐이니스 미팅바 진바 레샤 디레 데네 데보디야 가서 삼로다 미팅바 가서 되바데 미팅바지 리고도 진짜 데네 여바는 가서 먹어야 돼 스티 매바 쇠고도 빵고도 와서 매바 쇠고야 릭디레샤 세비가 하고도 고라
Here, to understand these words, thoroughly afflicted phenomena are of the discordant class. These are quite technical sounding words, but the meaning is really important. See the way, we need to come to see the way that our afflictions engage or apprehend objects, and then ask ourselves the question, do the objects exist in the way that they appear to the afflictions and are apprehended by the afflictions or not? And we come to see that our afflictions do not engage with the objects in accordance with reality at all, and they never ever do. And by this, and then we need to see the results, or what results from engaging with objects in a way that is contrary to reality. And we'll see that engaging in the world in a way that is contrary to reality only leads to problems. We'll see then the sequence starts with our afflictions. Our afflictions, believing that objects exist in a way that they don't appear, engaging with those objects in a way that they don't appear, acting in our world in a way that's contrary to reality, only leads to suffering, pain and misery. In this way we come to see that it's due to our afflictions, apprehending and engaging with objects in a way that's contrary to reality, that problems come, and therefore our desired happiness, our desired peace of mind cannot be achieved. That the afflictions are pervaded thoroughly by being discordant from reality, and therefore we keep suffering. We keep failing to achieve our desired peace of mind, lasting, stable happiness. So it's through recognizing this then that we give rise to a strong determination to eliminate what is causing our suffering and pain, our afflictions, because we see they are discordant with our desired peace of mind. And that through continuing to engage in the world in a way that's contrary to reality, it is this that keeps us bound in cyclic existence, chained to samsara and suffering. This is the only result of the afflictions, hence thoroughly afflicted. So seeing how these afflictions are also therefore discordant from reality, contrary to reality, knowing this, we'll want to eliminate them, to destroy them, because they are contrary to our true wishes, the desire for lasting, stable peace of mind.
Denigi dang sem nalo ya denigi sheba nyomo berik mongbo ti deni sheba dia deni tu chesan di zugi noturi bada anji an kasang zugi sem jamba nyeja komidu nyomo ba pangpe pangpa se de kokten tarba se shiro chesan zugi di denigi dade nga zugi gyula denigi nyomo berik ti karchi osne di tarba 토야래 bar치치기도 제가 니기 가르쳐도 나도 코월에 맞게 bar치고 치발치고 코월에 게 bar치고 진짜 tarba 토야래 bar치치기도 와 진짜 당하나 주게 tarba 토야라 tarba서 토고나 니 매바서고 대수 매바서고도 세제 다고 균이리기 바데 하고도 균이리기 하고 저는 균이리기 하고 봐서 니 그런 오 균이요 봐 그런 게 마음바는 제보들의 균전지 연구요 봐 저는 탈바토야를 바치지기요 봐. 내내기니서 하고에도 다디 매바 맞은 타면 디 매바 쇼고도 왔음비게. 다디 방고도 셈비게다. 바야기 돈이기 듬바디 아니 숙시리 거와.
Reflecting the way that's presented here, one comes to know that the afflictions are pervaded by faults, and therefore of a class that can be called thoroughly harmful because of being contrary to reality and contrary to reality, and because of our activities being so influenced by the afflictions, we keep creating causes that keep us bound in cyclic existence, and it's these very causes, the afflicted minds, that serve as obstacles to our desired attainment of freedom from pain and misery. Therefore, it's afflictions, these thoroughly afflicted phenomena, that we have to abandon, because we see that they are thoroughly pervaded by faults because of being discordant from reality. We recognize that they are the causes of our resultant suffering, and thereby a strong, burning desire rises within us to abandon them and to guard our mind and ensure our mind no longer comes under their influence at all.
Dizugi ne da dene nyomo batiki na tsewi gu thoma chunsa tsewi gu tardu ti da kising nga zu semja ma yeja ka sheba na shin da nga sebe nga rashi tempa tuba tsimpi ki tenzin dela tene ki yo ba se de jika chisa nga tempa tuba tsimpi tenzin di kising ma semja ma yeja ka bla she ndu ko lokshe imba ko na ne mi thimba de lokshe imba de ha ko de ane da de nyomo brik chasan zawa dela tene chungare chisa dene 중도와 제가 제위 유호로나 지금 미팅 로셰 로 안내시 우이니스 미팅 받진 바인자 나 그런 게 제수주의 녀모 브릭 차상 우이니스 미팅 받 차상 야야 자리 거래스 디네기 미팅 받세 디차도 와서 온도시네 제바 제장한 저기 제위규 다세 마리 발레티네 나 제바 나란신 주바 템버도 받지메 덴진들의 기여 바디 하고도 거래스 거와
This links very closely to what we were looking at in the previous section when we were talking about the meditating on the close placement of mindfulness on the mind, where we looked at how the root cause of all the afflicted minds is the ignorance of self-grasping or the ignorance of true grasping. And that this, being an ignorance, is a wrong consciousness because it apprehends the self as existing in a way that's contrary to reality, and thereby all the other afflictions result. So all the thoroughly afflicted phenomena come from this root cause of this one thoroughly afflicted phenomenon, the ignorance of self-grasping. And it's because of this ignorance, which apprehends the self in a way that is contrary to reality, all the other afflictions, which too apprehend their objects in a way that's contrary to reality, result.
다디 방고바다 디니 매바 쇠가 하고 데디니 다 가네스 메와 로 가네스 곰지 메바 소그레 시리다 남장기 최 탐지디 님보를 임바 셰바나 시로 되잖아 남장기 최 탐지에서 남장 세대 남장의 최 탐지 디 님보 임바 셰바 시리다 남장의 최에서 남장 랍나 저기 뇽모바 넘버 뇽모바 찾아 방배 방바 고딘 냥데들 남장라고 그래 남장세데 뇽모 방배 방바셀고 그러바 남장스 가른 남자세 뇽모베 넘버에 셰바 넘버 나 찾아 봐 장세 메바 방사제 고딘들 냥데들 아주 남장하세 제산 데니게 남장의 최라도 데니게 냥데 토벌 제비게 람게 냠네 림바 냠네게 람들라 다 남장의 최식으로
Recognizing this within oneself, a desire to completely abandon the thoroughly afflicted phenomena will arise, and to the extent, the depth that one recognizes the harm the afflictions play in our lives, to that extent, the desire will arise to abandon them. Naturally, thereafter, the thought comes how to do so. And this then brings us to the next sentence in the text, or the next part of the text. All completely pure phenomena are antidotes to them. All completely pure phenomena are antidotes to them. The term then, completely pure, this refers to a state where the afflictions, together with their seeds, have been abandoned. And the way to achieve that is to cultivate completely pure phenomena. Completely pure phenomena then refers to the stages of the path to achieve liberation.
남장 세대 냥티 세대 녀모 pompe pompo kokti 냥디 di 토베야라 바시지고로와 제자다 남장 디네 토베야기 바시지 녀모 메바 수야들라 다 메바 수긴 최대 가르가르 요래 시등아 주게 다데 다 베네 컨트롤 세치베나 아니지 컨트롤이 컨트롤 코랑 아주 탈바 토발라 바시지고 델라테네 아 주게 아니 그 동안요야 지고 게투 개발지고 제자네 그 매바 줘야라 가리 제세네 안디 독초디 가르치고 주세네 아니 샤리아 잠제삼다 잠바다 저 잠바삼다 이제 제자 잠바 공묘도 콘트롤이야 매바 줘야다 아니 잠바디 가르치고서네 잠바도 공부하네 델라데네 아주 뇽모보 빵비 빵바 냥티의 토비알이야 판도로 와다 남자가 주 제가 디 이야기 줘야래 판도가 뇽모 콘트롤이 많이야래 봐 제가 남자가 주 제가 님보셔야 돼 내가기 내 님보셔야 책으로 안디나신 아주 뇽모 ben에 현래 뇌베 삼바 이마나 현래 뇌베 삼바 델라데네 아니 타바 토바야래 봐도 다른 친바 안디 되고 누가 용고요 봐제 제가 디 님보들라 저기 현래 뇌바 지금에서 비 송비 추림사와나 송바이나 디 남장을 취 제가 디기 추림송와나 추림송와 델라데네 가는 것은 아주 뇽모 빵배 빵바디 계를 용야래 다 녀주고 주고래 제가 교주고래 디나시 다 저기 샬라 쇠바 ком야다 당아 저기 세나세 뇽모 바래 디고미야 진배님들 최선 남장의 취해차고로 디수 남장의 취해시고 그래서 남장 취해서 남자세데 탈바데샤 디 토야라 타 녀줘야 디 토야라 판도 행기 냠는데 남장 초유 취해서 저기 취해들이야 가서 삼루기 초들이야 림베니치고 가서 고실 마소나 군의 뇽모 초유 취해서다 군의 남자 초유 취해서 진짜 남자 초유 취해서 얘네 탈바 토야라야 판도 행기 디게 차서 최디게 예위자와 냠네디 남장을 취해서 뇽모바나 강아체기 뇽모바델 차사 군요 뇽모바 초서 고초 많이시 두시데 안디 남장을 취 다디 님보 시디 지상 저기 잠바 고미야디 콘트로에 내가 비 님보다 디니게 디라소바 디니 고미야디 다디나게 조디 가르레선 다디나 조조 딘도 자와 고미야디 뇽모바릭 차상이 조디 가르레티니 기고레스네 nga sebe nga rashin duba nga demba duba zime tenzi le kiwara chesa nga demba duba zime tenzi ki nyembo de karre sha di meba so karre sha zina de nga rashin demba ma duba tope topa 동반이 도비기 로티레 샤스 제가 딩님 보임바 하고도 그래 두 제바체도 디곰발레 때네 다딘 방토고 방고도 제가 님보 디레 샤스네 딘데 제바체요도 지금 남장에 주디 님보 샤바스 님보임바 하고 그래 제
So here we recognizing that it's these afflicted minds which are the thoroughly afflicted phenomena, and that they are discordant from reality and thereby prevent us from achieving a state of lasting peace and happiness, which is a state that is in accordance with reality, the state of nirvana. So if it's these afflictions then that prevent the attainment of nirvana, it's those afflictions that we need to eliminate. Obstacles need to be eliminated. So how to do so then? So just take one as an illustration, that of anger. Anger clearly is a mind that is contrary to the state of liberation, and it serves to impede our spiritual development, our progression towards liberation. And moreover, it only leads to suffering, both now as well as in future lives, both for ourselves as well as others. The antidote to it, the contrary mind to it, is a mind of love. So in dependence on cultivating love, which serves to impede the arisal of anger, not only does our suffering thereby lessen and our temporary happiness increase, but we have the space, the possibility to rapidly further our progression towards the attainment of liberation. The attainment of liberation becomes so much easier to the extent that anger is overcome by the cultivation of love. So that's one illustration of a completely pure phenomenon. There are many others, such as, for example, patience. Patience serves to not only be of benefit to us, but it aids our approach to liberation. And of course, so too, ethical restraint. Ethical restraint too is an illustration of a completely pure phenomenon. Why? Because it's an antidote to all the obstacles. It's an antidote to the obstacles that impede our spiritual development, and it serves to aid our attainment of liberation. Therefore, in summary here, completely pure phenomena are those consciousnesses, those mental factors, which bring us closer to the attainment of liberation and serve to also lead to the attainment of temporary happiness. And the thoroughly afflicted phenomena are those which keep us bound in suffering and obstruct the attainment of liberation. And all of these afflictions, as we've heard, have as their root cause the ignorance of self-grasping or the ignorance of true grasping. Recognizing this, we'll know that we need to cultivate the wisdom realizing emptiness, because it is this that is the actual antidote to all the thoroughly afflicted phenomena. And here we see in the text, all completely pure phenomena are antidotes to them, antidotes to the thoroughly afflicted phenomena.
Dene gi nyebor sheba na sida dene gi nyomo be zawadi nyomo ba cha zawad da se marik ba che chesan da se marik ba di nyembo di dame boto be sherati imbada ha ko ngures chesan ha ko ba za deni so deni nyese lo do be tapsu she ne se deni nyese lo do be tapsu she ne se de geber ji be chu si ro chesan deni se du karasne dame ba to be sherab deni di 샹다 곰발에 때는 녀모마자 차상의 규조 다제 말이 방투면도 제가 다제 말이 빠야라 녀보데 가르세네 다음에 봐도 베시라 코로나에 대니데 대직부레 이마도 샹다요 말해서 그래 제가 다 메바토 마토바이나 다 메바토비 다 모토바나 다진디 방투고 말해. 그래서 디니세 다 메바토비 셰랍데 데코나다 딘 다도 주바지메 짐베 님보 디레샤 하고인데 데 녀셀로 도비게 탑레샤 다 녀와체바 탐젤로 도베 탑. 그래서 녀와체바는 다 짐바 녀와체바스는 어느 쪽에 류유 동아 생게 강아 루심게 강아 야디 녀와체바스 그러와. 그래서 디 용야 차산 녀 루심게 동아 강아 야 차산 레다 녀모발레데 예 레다 녀모바티는 세비규 다제 마리바들레 기도 와스. 그래서 다제 마리바다 빵바이나 빵바이나 아니 델레트는 녀모지야미도 녀모지야미나 레사야메 레사와메나 나손레 끼와메 코와레 끼와레바메 지산 레뉴 코와레 끼와레바메나 디네 둥알 녀와체와도 용하요 말해 지산 다 다음에 보토베 셰럽도 곰바이나 다 녀와체와 차상 강아 차상 도야기 도베 탑디다 다음에 보토베 셰레샤 셈베게 하고지 탑소 시에네 시디 녀와체와 도베 탑문에다 메바서에 쪼데 담에도 싫어진 바들이샤스 디하고지 디네 개버지비 수유시데 디네 담에도 싫어디 아니 유 잼비기 담에 발라 잼비 진 델야네 띵이진 계제시 제주니비 띵이진 고미하다 안디 띵이진 디데네 아니 싫어기 제바제제 아니 실라 손조금 지산 실라 손조금 고레스 지산 디니지 공고레제레 디 공묘도 당한데 남는 냠는 제바서 그러 동바니래 미네 다음에 발 미네 제주미 비시 잠베지 아니 신이 띵해진게 되는 띵해진게 되네 셔랍게네 실라 손도 고미야디 당 아주게 가서래 아 남는 냠는 제바래 진짜 남는 냠는 제바셔야디 다디 자고를 진짜 남들라 템바시나네 남는 냠는 주그레 세야디 주루그레 세 주다디 되네 셰스 네. 어디 담아봐도.
So if you looked at the first sentence here, you'll understand that all thoroughly afflicted phenomena are of the discordant class, and all completely pure phenomena are antidotes to them. Then it continues, knowing that these very antidotes. So here, we understand this in two ways. So in English, I've translated it in the plural, but it really should be in the singular, knowing this, that this very antidote are the methods for, or is the method for turning away from harm. Because whilst it does refer to cultivating all the completely pure phenomena, the antidotes to the afflictions, specifically it's referring to cultivating the actual antidote, the wisdom realizing emptiness. This is what is known. That is the wisdom realizing emptiness. That is the actual antidote to the root cause of all suffering, the ignorance of self-grasping. So we can understand this, we have it here in the plural, but we understand that whilst it means the plural, it particularly means the singular. Whilst all completely pure phenomena, all antidotes need to be cultivated, particularly the actual antidote, the wisdom realizing emptiness needs to be cultivated, because all the suffering that we long to be freed of comes from the ripening of contaminated karma, which was accumulated by our afflicted minds. And those afflicted minds have as their root the ignorance of self-grasping, and its direct antidote is the wisdom realizing emptiness. Therefore, by realizing, to the extent we realize emptiness, we sever, or first weaken, then sever the root cause of all our suffering, and this entire chain ceases. So therefore here, so then the text continues, knowing that these very antidotes are the methods for turning away from harm, the harm that the afflictions cause, the suffering that the afflictions cause. You'll cultivate them and thereby engage in the practice of the Four Noble Truths. You'll cultivate them, again we understand here, whilst it refers to cultivating all completely pure phenomena, specifically it refers to cultivating the wisdom realizing emptiness, and thereby engage in the practice of the Four Noble Truths. And whilst this is what it literally says, it means engage in the practice of the true paths. And the true paths refers to realizing emptiness. Each time one realizes emptiness, one holds it with mindfulness and stabilization. It has been achieved through investigation with wisdom. One realizes emptiness, one holds it, engages in placement meditation with stabilization and mindfulness, slowly developing calm abiding on your realization of emptiness. And thereby, when stabilization has been developed into calm abiding, the mental factor stabilization is developed into calm abiding, and thereafter, as has been explained previously, one tries to bring in a wisdom as well and investigate, and here wisdom is meditative insight, and eventually these two can be gained with union of calm abiding and meditative insight. And this whole process of realizing emptiness, holding it with calm abiding, and trying to develop, and then eventually developing the union of calm abiding and meditative insight, these are the paths specifically being referred to here. So it's the training in all mental paths, but specifically referring here in the training of true paths, the union of calm abiding and meditative insight on emptiness.
Dine zadan che tamba nyesha kongan dige zo kar komo sne dang jigi che tamba nyesha ne ji tsenyi da meba de komgo chena yu da tongba ni tongba ma ka so re da meba le mi che ndela ndinge zenje dinge ze shine trup andiga la ani sherab ji cheba che shila so de kombe ya ya ani jenju semba je ka so chola lam ben nyandwe rangje chen semba ina cholam ba digi ta dame ba le mi bi shine trupsha sila sonde top mena sila sonde tobi chedo komya da sila sonde top sawa ne ani ko lam jong bene pabe ki lam din yo gyula ki bi chedo ani komgo wa kono so di komgo re jisa dine za da dina de ge da dangbo nyamle samta jeba chela ani chige rangge chenyi da jeba de ji chenyi 디데 지생이는 조 하는 다음에 봐 미시는 실라송 조금 고르와.
What we see here in the close placement of mindfulness on phenomena is that it refers that whilst to overcome all the thoroughly afflicted phenomena, one needs to cultivate all completely pure phenomena, specifically to overcome the root of all thoroughly afflicted phenomena, one needs to cultivate the actual antidote, the completely pure phenomenon that is the wisdom realizing emptiness. And when this is as this is developed, as one realizes emptiness, one first develops one's stabilization to the point where it's calm abiding, and then that calm abiding, we develop that so that it can hold a subtle object like emptiness. Thereafter, we develop the meditative insight and try and bring those two in a union of calm abiding and meditative insight, holding the subtle object of emptiness. And whilst at this point one will have probably cultivated other mental paths already, this becomes the actual path that will go on to develop into a true path in the continuum of an Arya being. So amongst the various paths, mental paths, the one that is the union of calm abiding meditative insight, realizing emptiness, it is this one that develops into the actual path, or into a true path in the continuum of an Arya being.
당아주게 냠는 체할이야 아니 코로즈 냠는 나와 나신 정아주 지고고르와다 당아주길래 점반야샤다데 슝네 송바 나신이 점반야샤데 아주리 깨매바이네 아주리 최점반야샤데 곰매요르와다 곰추고르와 다간스 곰고리에 라나아주 대신나 지바레 당아주게 셈나려야 아니 아주 셰바나 삼노나래 가르가르 용구도 세베 당보 삼다에도 아니 콩조게야 ane duecha geya, ngaya geya, ane chige shena geya, shena nube samba geya, ane sena geya, ane chige dine jine semdi karikari yungu sheba nala karikari yungu du sibe da du chin jeba che, disu ngoyo sonya di geya chimbo chagorwa. Da dine ngoyo sonya, ngana zuki du chine ngoyo sonya du, da di ngana zuki yu di, ane Chögyi pa lo sonya dele ya ngana zuki, ane ka sore rangi tsingi tse jeba jeba ru chagorwa da, 지다 ngoyo 다 ngoyo 다네 지게 콘로세야 되기 유 간데 징기도 되셔야 되게 간데 그런 난구도 그런 간데 난구도 세비게 두체 삼마다 안데네게 단 안행아 주기 지게 데솔라테네 콘로데 데솔데 가르리고서네 아 주리 데솔레 깨바나 제부딜레 가르용도 세바다 다 니제리아 강아 중구요바디 디네 지제바제나 nga 주게 세부를 하고 두고 와다 제고 다고 와다 가지고 두신 콘로 깨사야도 콘로 깨나 안지 제볼라 가르는 것도 슬람나 안에 셈마기와 차야 안지게디네 안지 기분매 받아 안지게 야다 안지 되샤를 깨베네 안디 깨진는 마기와 차야 안지 강아 먹고래야다 디네 용구도 와서 제가 디네기 제바 제가 디네 용구요 반사 다 디소이 디네기 용야기 다 되자다 콘도다 디네 가지 녀모바 디네세 간시 리그도 선양에 가지 직 디소 간시 기고를 삼다에도 제바시자 제연도 진짜 당번 알아서 삼 가르고서 나 세 삼코시다 나 세데 삼코시 진행아 나 삼코는데 나를 뇌기도 세데 디 나를 뇌기도 세네 콘란 거로와 디기 나를 뇌서래 세네 콜야 콘란 거로와 아니 nga se tambo nga se ta samje dine ngi punja다 인생 세데 ngi nga yuwa che da konjuge ngi punjale nyugido se yang khorlan gorwa je ngi punjage le kanga tigido se ngi khorlan se khorge chesan khorlan ya gyuchasan zo pu sam ta zaiwe samnod nga se samdeli gore chesa nga sinle tin li gore dinashin dwesha se de pe nga juge chala ina da ka chikchil chakwa kiye de chesa da chakwa de kiye de da 유디 가서 착과데 같은 레슨 데시 당보 코로나 간에 스키에서 삼타데 나 삼타데 나 삼타데 되네 파데 나래 디고도 센데 착과게 진짜도 제대 지상 안 주게 착과 찾아 녀모 찾아게 나진들이 기도 와서 다 나진 깨봐는데 다 나진 나 세베 삼부디 간에도 나라 나 세지 간에 난구도 세지 다 나진 레 제바 잘리 거로다
For those of us, rather, as we haven't achieved a path in our continuum, we haven't realized emptiness, we should not, though, shy away from this meditation. In order to become like the practitioners who are engaging in the actual four close placements of meditation, four close placements of mindfulness, we need to meditate to in accordance with our ability, in a way similar to how they are. Because this will be the process that we develop paths in our continuum, become skilled like they are. So start by looking at our afflictions. We have so many: anger, attachment, miserliness, harmful intent, jealousy, and so forth. Start with those and look at the process. Let's take one as an illustration. So let's take anger. See, first start to see how anger arises. Then see, is anger in accordance with reality in that the way it approaches the object? Does what follows from anger, is it happiness, is it suffering? And we need to come to see here in the first step that the afflictions are pervaded by faults, that they do not lead to happiness. There's no justification for for following or acting under the influence of the afflictions. They are never beneficial. Because this then gives us the strength of mind to spend time investigating the role the afflictions play in our lives in order to eradicate them. If we don't recognize that they are thoroughly afflicted, that they only cause harm, we won't really want to give them up because we'll see them as serving a beneficial purpose in our life. As we recognize then that the afflictions only harm, and that there is no benefit that comes, no justification for them, and because there's no benefit that follows from them, then look at this how this process plays itself out. That every consciousness has an object. Anger exaggerates the faults of that object. And from this, and because this mind is then not in accordance with reality, it takes us further away from the state that is in accordance with reality, liberation, peace of mind. And why does anger arise in the first place? And we investigate and we see that it's actually not due to the object, but it's rather comes from a cause within us. Even if that object is internal, such as a thought, and anger arises in relation to a memory, there is a source deeper within us than just a memory. And this is, for example, we are angry at something or someone because it has done harm to us, or it is harming us, or it may harm us. Or maybe not us, maybe our loved one, or maybe a group that we identify with. And what we see here is that it harms me, it harms my loved one, it harms the group I identify with. And we see this link between these three is the sense of self, I. That this is the root cause. Because we perceive someone or something as harming us in some way, either us directly or those that we value, anger arises. And in this way we come to see that anger comes from the sense of I, our self and our sense of I. And we then apply this to other afflictions and see how they too come from this sense of I. In this way, we come to understand this process, how it works, and that its root cause is self-grasping.
Do sometime the dinner, you moba jena, give you la makiba, heavy chela, matiba, ranchanical, makiba shondo, or that dineza, dinner yungdua, something some da, dinner yon by zada, di, makia, young the bezuche, who do simply making yelling and as one go some daje, and ya, no contra kiegi, makia, tablum carchivos in it. Jamze samda janlia jamba komia kom hudu sepike janlia jamze kaje kom to the jamba samda to jebana konrekia da anjik kesi negablia anjik deniki angarslia kangate ya deni na konrekia gi du charugura jesa deni inza delia sebo kom to je hu sebo kom ko sebe nyamne je hu deniki 마기 녀레네 저기도 장들 저 고미야디 기치 못 차고 와 되니게 안에 지게 녀모 되샤 개베네 되샤 마기 녀레는 저기다 어다 되샤 세대기네 라신니가라 강아디 되게 맞춰 치고 제가 되니자 율리아 유이가네시네 델리아 안직 어다 되니게 쇼질 지게 미다베 삼다야다 기지게 주와 미다베 삼다야 안에 지게 되니게 유 되샤 계세게 유 닝아 첨보르요네 델레 미두보 삼다야다 누치는 아제 삼다네 닝아 주님은 내가 빙기파 원고제디 아니 디차야다 근데 세나 제바나 동위 삼바자야 동위 삼바자야다 니니기 아니 챤레 뉘베 삼바이나 디기파 독초리아 챤레 뉘베 지기메스 빌링아 있으면 챤레 뉘베 지기메스 송기 디니 삼로디파 야네야도 자야디 차바네 내가 빙요 몽기 원고 자자고래 디니기 Dini ane ko tsawa di da, dini zada nyomo pa tsawa nepaya di dasim pangu kore, chisa dasim pangpa la da mepa top kore, chisa ngi da mepa la chepa chi, da mepa topar chi to ya ki tabshi chi yin senpe ki da, nganzo samdaya da, dini ki dunpa kiya da, an dini ki dami ki to ya ki tonda liya, tanga zu ki ya lama da, la da, idam liya, ane chepa puya da, ane so dep che ya, ane dus chi ne, chike che ya di, Gyälwa Geshe Thubten Rabten ane Geshe mar chagore da ngana didingi chue ta manyasha ge samdang ji dus chin ta manyasha komi tu ane lamdela nyamne chukure se she de dang ngana dus nyamne cheba ina da ngana ju ge samlo de ge yu chwa de samlo shu che che cho de ane gele gele chi ngana ju ge ya ane ji ge lamden thoya ge ta manyasha di ngana ju gyule ge ge rawa chenbo ye de war chagore wa dine da ngana didingi she di samda de dine ridwa.
Through engaging in the reflection I've just presented, one will come to see the role that the afflictions play in our lives, how they arise, as well as why they arise. So this is imperative, because this is how we come to understand suffering, the origin of suffering. And we trace that origin down to its root cause, that it's from our mistaken sense of self-identity, or our mistaken way of relating to the self, that our afflictions arise. And from these afflictions, only suffering follows. The clearer we understand this, the deeper that understanding is, the stronger our determination to eliminate the afflictions as well as their root cause. And thereby we start to train in the antidotes, the completely pure phenomena. So for example, we use illustration of anger. So here one then generates the antidote of love. Moreover, wanting to overcome a wider range of afflictions, such as attachment, one cultivates the antidote through reflecting on impermanence, as well as the object that we desire. That is not the way that we perceive it. It's not really how it is. It has faults. It has many faults, including it lacks the ability we believe it has to actually bring us happiness. And moreover, we train in an antidote such as patience, so as to ensure that in the face of adversity, our mind stays calm and stable, and wisdom and compassion can rather arise. So these are temporary antidotes, and it's crucial we train in them because they are more achievable for us beginners. But alongside this, we should also start to cultivate the wisdom realizing selflessness, or the wisdom realizing emptiness, and start to gain familiarity with this practice, with this meditation, so as to slowly start to weaken this root cause of all pain and misery, the ignorance of self-grasping. And alongside these meditations too, you should make supplications to our lamas and the three jewels and the yidams, and accumulate virtue, because this too serves to aid the progression in our meditation. So therefore, to close this session, we've looked at here the meditation, the close placement of mindfulness on phenomena, which leads us to engage in the cultivation of a true path. True path being the wisdom realizing emptiness and the continuum of an Arya being. So here we've hopefully given rise to some aspiration to do so, and especially in dependence on all the preceding meditations, we will have given rise to a yearning for freedom. And here we gain insight into the various meditations that we need to cultivate, the completely pure phenomena, in order to abandon what restricts us, our development, and causes us pain, the thoroughly afflicted phenomena. Then in the next session, we'll conclude this third outline by looking at a quotation from Maitreya, and thereafter we'll continue with the next outline, that of the entity of the four close placements of mindfulness. Thank you very much.